Advertising and Amazon PPC, that's the topic today, and we're interviewing Michael Erickson, the CEO of Ad Badger, easily the best podcast that is specifically dedicated to Amazon PPC. I've listened to them test real case studies, doing things to prove them, so to speak. And when Amazon misleads or doesn't transparently share how things work, these guys know how to cut through the thick of it and figure it out. So excited to talk to Michael today, and we're diving into PPC. This is the My Amazon Guy podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pope, founder of the agency My Amazon Guy. Tune in each week to learn how to grow your Amazon sales. I'm now joined by Michael. Thank you so much for coming on the My Amazon Guy podcast.
Stephen, it's a privilege to be here.
Well, I reached out to Michael a couple months ago, and we've had some dialogue as I've tried to trick him into coming on the MAG podcast here, so to speak. And I've been following their content. It's just some of the best freaking content on PPC out there. So I'm just really elated to have you on, Michael.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That means a lot. Love making content. It's perhaps one of my favorite things to do. So it's awesome to be here.
Well, very cool. So we're going to dive in and add any value we can related to Amazon advertising and PPC today. This will be your rodeo, but I will try and buck some Broncos with you.
Let's do it.
I guess I should have used the Badger metaphor now that I think of it. Do you got any good Badger metaphors?
It's less of a metaphor, more of a visual metaphor, but we will dive into the beehive today. That is Amazon PPC, as a honey badger would do.
Yeah. So was the honey badger like meme video kind of the theme behind your brand?
Yes. Easy pickup, easy. Just like you need a brand, just pick an animal that has some kind of lore around it. You're set. Wolverine, tiger, shark, jaguar, anything with claws, bear, you're set.
Well, honey badger don't have time for that. So let's go right in. All right. So PPC, the most important thing on Amazon or the mostest important thing on Amazon?
I think it definitely takes up a huge amount of mental real estate. So I guess I would go with your second option, the most important part of Amazon.
Whenever I watched Stephen Colbert back in the day, he would always ask questions like that. He'd be like, was George Bush the greatest president of all time, or was he the greatest? Actually, I'm butchering it now.
Greatest.
Greatest, whatever
but
he
yes.
at the time. Anyway, so that was the theme of that question that I had prepared there. All right, so why do you say that? Why is it the mostest important thing on Amazon?
Because Amazon is making it so. It's interesting because Google kind of did the same thing. Facebook kind of did the same thing, and now we see Amazon doing it, where essentially all of these platforms, tech giants, if you will, are all changing the way that their pages look to prioritize digital advertisements. So, Google does it where they push down the organic results and they smack paid ones up top, where they changed up the ad symbol on Google Ads, which used to be yellow. It said ad. Now it's sort of this grayish color and you don't really see it anymore.
I guarantee anybody above age 50 can't tell ads from organic apart.
Sure.
9 times.
Yeah. And, I wouldn't put it past anyone under 50 when they're on Amazon making a search to be able to point out the ads either. When you make a search, on Amazon, you've already decided what you're going to click on, and then you're sort of already doing it. Maybe you notice as you're pressing the button or as you're tapping it, maybe you'll notice the word sponsored somewhere. But for the most part, the way that they're changing their page, and to finish that thought, Facebook did it the same way too, diminishing organic reach, making you pay to engage with people that like your page or in your group. Amazon, if you go back and you look at screen caps of old Amazon pages, there were no ads on it. In fact, there were even ads that, long time ago, there were ads that you could serve and take people to your Shopify store on Amazon. But
I actually don't remember that. I've been doing Amazon ads so long. I was like in the beta program when they didn't even let everybody into it. And I had like 2 cents a click ads selling rice cookers. That was my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like we just crushed it with rice cookers back in the day. Right. But like, I had no idea you actually could take them to the Shopify site. So like, how long ago was that?
That was a while. If you search Michael Erickson Fascine Amazon pads. They were called like product ads. I think people called them pads. I called them pads. Was talking about it a long, long time ago on an e-commerce podcast, a long, long time ago. But that was like every Shopify store owner's favorite ad,
I
because you
bet.
got like Amazon conversion rate onto your Shopify store. It was pretty absurd. But
Probably was like the lowest PPC anybody ever paid ever, like on
for
any
sure.
platform.
Yeah. It was like 20, like everything was under $1 back then. But yeah, I mean, you just look at all the new products that Amazon is rolling out for their advertising platform. You look at the way they're changing up the search results so that, you know, on most screens, if you're searching, you see ads above the fold, meaning the area that you see before you start scrolling down. So the way that they are prioritizing ads necessitates the need for advertising to be at the forefront of every Amazon marketer. And even look at the way that they you know, communicate and interact with the people that sell on their platform. You know, there's account executives that are reaching out to you to tell you about new ad products. You know, I don't think anyone's ever gotten a call from Amazon that says, "Hey, why don't you optimize your title like this to accomplish this goal?" It's always like, "Hey, why don't you do this new ad type?" So, you know, they're prioritizing it, and that necessitates us that sort of play in the Amazon arena to have to prioritize it as well.
So, so Michael, you have over 100 podcasts talking about PPC specifically, right? And like,
Yes.
I've got 400 videos out there, but I don't think I have 100 on PPC specifically.
Mm-hmm.
You're a mile deep and an inch wide on this topic. So
Yes.
this next question might be a little difficult. Take as much time with it as you want. But like, if
I'm
you
good.
had to
Go ahead.
summarize like your entire 100 podcasts into one soundbite,
Mm-hmm.
what have you learned about PPC?
That's really good. That's a good one.
I thought it was a good prep.
That's a good one. Right message to the right person at the right time.
That's a safe answer. But walk me through that. Like what does that mean?
So I think what happens a lot is when people say, I need to go do PPC, it's almost like this single dimension activity of just doing it. And I think the people that truly master PPC and wield it like a weapon, as opposed to having it oppress them, sort of like, oh man, I got to do this.
That's a good way to put it.
I think the people that really wield it like a
Double-edged
weapon,
sword.
yes, those people, what they have decided, they what they know to be true, which I believe this to be true as well, is that there are many different ways to market your product. PPC is one of them, and PPC itself has a lot of dimensions to it. And the way that you really fine tune it is understanding what you're serving, who you're serving it to, and sort of how much you're willing to pay to have that be served. So when you look at all the different ad products, and you maybe not even there, maybe you just look at the different types of keywords, understanding that not all keywords are created equal, that you can bid on, understanding that prioritizing like all of the keywords that you ever will look at and ever consider for your product that you'll ever have in your PPC campaign have an inherent prioritization, meaning there's going to be one keyword that will be your very best converting keyword. And it is for reasons that it is being served to the right person who's making that search. They're seeing the right thing. They're clicking on it more frequently than others, and they're converting on it more frequently than others. So all those factors coalesce. It says it's a lot more about the behavior around that keyword than opposed to the keyword itself. So when you start prioritizing all of your keywords in that way, not just viewing keywords in a list of performance, but understanding that there's a whole world surrounding each keyword and why that keyword converts the way that it does. You know, if we're both selling mason jars and I bid on, mason jars for pickling and you bid on mason jars for pickling, our conversion rates will probably be different. Our images will probably be different. Like all of these things will be different. And understanding like that component and how that relates back to a keyword and a bid, that's sort of like you are seeing in the fourth dimension. You are now Matthew McConaughey in contact and you are traversing space-time, like that's where people really begin to understand PPC. And I know that was like super duper heady, but for the, to summarize that in one sentence, it's understanding that PPC is actually
the fourth dimension.
Yes, it's more complex than we think it is. And at the same time, it is also understandable. And by sort of peeling back the layers, you start to see how all the dots connect. And that should be very, very empowering to people.
So I'm gonna hit this fourth dimension a little bit longer here. Sometimes explaining PPC to somebody is like trying to explain the fourth dimension to a three-dimensional being. And yes. And if you ever Google one of these videos, and by the way, this is a fantastic 10-minute exercise if you want to be like,
yes,
if you want to go down this like weird rabbit hole of mental,
yes, I love it,
stretching. And no matter what your personal or scientific beliefs are, it will blow your mind if you haven't done this before. But like there's and I forget the scientist's name off the top of my head. What's the guy's name? Is it Sagan?
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan, yeah. And so he does this video where he tries to explain the fourth dimension to three-dimensional beings by explaining the third dimension to two-dimensional beings. And he's like, if you were a three-dimensional being coming onto this paper of PPC two-dimensional, you would show up as just like a flat slice of your body. And they would not comprehend what you can see or feel or touch or anything like that. So sometimes this PPC world can absolutely feel like a foreign dimension. So that's I think it was a good take.
Yes.
All right. So your other part of your comment. So what you're telling me is if I put my top 3 keywords on a manual campaign and set up an auto campaign, I'm going to have Amazon passive income now.
That is correct. As simple as that. And that's another problem that I think I have with digital marketing education is that it's very difficult to stride the line of being simple and digestible so that people can go and take action and actually giving the right advice. And what I mean by that is it's almost a disservice to tell people a step-by-step process because everyone's is different. Like everyone has different average order values. Everyone has different time to conversion. Everyone has different conversion rates, so on and so forth, different goals, whatever, that it can be, it's something that I struggle with a lot, which is trying to be as helpful as possible, but be simple and accessible and digestible. Because a lot of times when you follow just a list, step 1, do this, step 2, do this, you never get questions on what was step 1 and 2. You get questions on how come it didn't work or how come it didn't work like it said. And when it's almost like depriving people of the entire process. So my personal belief is if anyone wants to really find success and be, wield PPC like a sword, like a flaming sword in their business, they can't just follow a simple checklist. Like you need to understand some of the nuts and bolts. And that's sort of my, I get really excited professionally to try to break those things down in a way that is digestible.
So keep going.
You do that with visual metaphors like flaming sword or fourth dimension or diving into the beehive.
Well, I would say I'm pretty biased on this question, right? Because like obviously as an agency, I want to go run your PPC. I want to take your money and make you more money, right? And the world is too complex. You got to hire us, obviously, right? But like so there's clearly some improvements and some of those steps you mentioned that we could give to our listeners today that they could walk away. And so we'll dive into that.
Yes.
But before I want to spend the bulk of our time on like pro tips, like before we do that, I do want to bite the hand that feeds us just a tiny bit. And since we got the badger on here, so the honey badger don't care about that. He gets bit by the cobra and he still eats the cobra. And then he like passes out for a couple hours and he comes back and eats the rest of the cobra. Yes. Right. So like Amazon is the cobra in my metaphor. And so it stabs us all the time or injects us with venom. And we're like, what the heck is going on? So like, I feel like Amazon is sometimes not the most transparent company, maybe resonate with a few people.
I've never heard that before.
So so in some of your podcasts, I think the most impressive thing, that, at least for me, my biggest takeaway from listening to your pod is you try and ask Amazon questions about how something works, and they never accurately depict actually how it physically works. Like they'll say what the textbook says, they'll tell you what the help file says, but then you go out there and you're like, actually, this is what we actually found. This is, like this is how you actually trigger this functionality in this certain way. And I'm speaking generically on purpose, but like, all right, so how I don't even know what my question is per se, but like how frustrating is it to go try and crack the Amazon PPC code sometimes?
Very much. And you know what? I feel like it is because no one truly knows how everything works.
At Amazon or outside of it.
Anyone ever.
Yeah.
No, at Amazon. The reason why is because all of their ad products, like sponsored products, auto sponsored product targeting, negative targeting for sponsored products, sponsored brands, sponsored brand video, all of these different ad products.
Hold on, you forgot display.
No, right, all of them. It's different teams working on different things. Every team has their own unique initiatives
and objectives.
And objectives. So all of them are trying to, hone that in. And then the account executives have their own objectives too. And typically they come from, hey, we want more ad spend higher up in the funnel. So let's push these ad types. So you have a lot of mixed incentives and disparate teams working on different parts of the ad platform. So if you ask someone, hey, how come I'm bidding on loose match, or I'm bidding on a keyword, how do I have product page impressions and clicks? You no one knows the answer to that, and you can hear different things from different people. And when I talk to other Amazon marketing professionals, like these are people that spend all day in Amazon, how do conversations really go? Well, they go like this: hey, there's a new report. Can you get your search terms in, sponsored brand ads? It's like, I don't know, let me go double check. Or, hey, is this metric available for sponsored display? It's available in sponsored products and sponsored brand. Is it available in sponsored display? I don't know, let me go check. Even professionals that spend all day have these conversations too, where it's half the battle is just knowing where to look. So like that in and of itself is super duper powerful.
Day one at my Amazon guy is always navigation. There's so many freaking things to navigate within the Seller Central portal. And even though this pod is entirely about ads, it can be cross-applied here. Just navigating the ads world requires high levels of sophistication.
Exactly. So all of this comes down to the fact that it is just this ever-growing web. And it helps to have that mind map. It helps to know where to look to go to find the thing, because eventually it becomes more second nature.
So Amazon is, of course, coming out with all these new real estate advertisements, and it's because more people are flocking. There's more sellers. There's more people bidding, so they can raise their prices, or they could offer more real estate and or both, right? And it's an auction, so they can claim that it was the sellers that made the prices go up, I guess, but whatever. So my question for you is, are there too many ads on Amazon.com today?
I think if they could click their heels together, they would make it so that every time you click, it's an ad.
Wow.
Where it's just like you're just, like every single thing, it's like they're just making money. Like think of the millions of searches that are searched every hour on Amazon. Imagine if every single one of them ended in a paid click. And I
Ready
think
Player One,
right.
for the nerds out there that have seen that movie, everything was an ad.
Yeah, because you think of the way that Google's algorithm works. Its organic algorithm is different than its paid algorithm. On Facebook, its paid algorithm is different than its organic one. They try to merge them. They try to have the same incentives on both, but nowhere is that most true on Amazon, where the organic algorithm is actually influenced by the paid, and vice versa. Like these things are one and the same in a lot of ways. So by continuing to do that, continuing to make the paid ad rank more similar to the organic rank, could it be an event in the future where everything is paid? Whether or not that'd be good for customers, I don't know. But if Amazon could have it their way, they would make it good for customers. So that, you see this all the time. If you're selling mason jars and you bid on bicycle tires, you're going to have a hard time advertising that, even with a $10, $20 bid, because you're going to have a really poor click-through rate. Yeah. So Amazon does have that in mind. So could they ever merge the two and just have, this sort of paid algorithm? I don't think so. I lived in South Korea for a little bit, and there was awesome. A search engine over there where every single thing was like the organic Google, like their Google search results were all paid, and like nobody trusted anything because it was like, most people generally trust. I shouldn't say nobody trusts anything. People I knew didn't trust the search results.
Could have been capitalism, could have been the government. I won't speak to that. We'll move on. But all right. So I feel like there's too many ads personally. You look at your detail page, there's like 100 places you can click on an ad. And it's like, frick, that's my detail page. But it's really not. It's Amazon's. They own it. What do you do?
Good to remember.
Part of doing business. Okay. So how many, so let's go to the next question here. So improvements that somebody can make today. Let's walk through some things. So like, what are some, let's go generic first.
Yes.
I got 5 minutes of effort I can put in today, maybe 15 if you press me, because it's a 3-day week, going into Thanksgiving. What should I do?
I've got it. So here's a really good example. I'm going to, this is only one step. It's 2 steps. View your search term report and add new negatives. That is by far one of the easiest value adds that you can ever make in your campaigns. And you should probably be doing this on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. That's once a week or twice a week, not twice a month. The reason why, and here's the found.
We've gone to saying every other week just to avoid confusion.
Yes. Yes. So here's why adding negatives is so, it's really effortlessly impactful. When you bid on anything, a broad match, a phrase match, a category, a brand, whatever, an automatic targeting campaign, you're showing up for a wide variety of things. Some of these things will convert better than others. And by looking at your search term report, it allows you to see what you appeared for so that you can block the things that are irrelevant and unprofitable. Go ahead.
So I've got a wine glass, and some of the examples that I negate on the wine glass are unbreakable, plastic, acrylic. And these are things I wish that, if I had a feature request, it would be account-wide negations.
Sure.
Wouldn't that be nice?
I don't want to.
You can do it. Do it.
I don't want to. I don't want to do it.
So obviously Ad Badger has some features. Is that an Ad Bad feature?
It's an Ad Badger feature.
Yeah.
We call it a marketplace negative.
By the way, we have 2 or 3 clients using Ad Badger today.
Sweet.
We're obviously biased. We want all the business. We want to run the whole thing.
Do it.
And there's some benefit to having a holistic approach. That's not part of the pod.
So I'm not a pitch. Look how uncomfortable I am.
I know. Here's the thing. Like, I'm a huge fan. Like, I told all my Ad Badger clients, keep you. Like, I didn't want to take your business because I'm a huge fan. So in any case, we were going through this glass
negatives,
acrylic thing, whatnot. So should I be adding these negations to my category targeting as well?
Yeah. So let's talk about the components of a negative. So being able to block, we want to block 2 things: irrelevant and unprofitable things. So and you can block words, so you can block searches, and you can block individual ASINs. So essentially, the easiest thing to do would be to, when you download that search term report, sort it by three things. One, a lot of clicks without a sale, a lot of spend without a sale, a lot of impressions without a sale. Um, and what you can do with that information is that you will have an account that has a better click-through rate, better conversion rate, and better ACOS if you block them. So you're blocking essentially your worst performing searches. You're blocking them, and in terms of how you add them, the easiest piece of advice I could say is add them as a negative exact or a negative ASIN to whatever triggered them in that ad group. That's
Why
probably
not?
the
Why not a
easiest
negative
place.
phrase?
So this is where we can go to the second level. So if there's something that is wholesale, like irrelevant and unprofitable. So let's say you are selling running shoes and they're made for the track and not the trail. And you notice in your search term report, you have trail running shoes, uh, you have men's trail running shoes, and you have children's trail running shoes. What's the common thread between all of them? Well, it's the word trail. And since you don't sell trail running shoes, it will make a lot of sense for you to block every search with the word trail in it. So if you have something where you can block everything with it, then that's where you would use a negative phrase. So in that case where I don't sell trail running shoes, I would smack the word trail as a negative phrase, as a sort of a multi-campaign negative. I never want to appear for it ever. So that's where I can do that. The issue that people sometimes bump into is, let's say I'm selling running shoes for the track and they sell men's running shoes and women's running shoes. Sometimes they might see a word that maybe it's just not performing well. Maybe it's like, black running shoes, where for some reason is black running shoes just isn't behaving well. And if you were to add that as maybe a negative phrase, it's possible that black running shoes for the track is actually doing well. And if you block the phrase black running shoes, you could potentially block a word that is good, like black running shoes for the track. So you want to be really careful about whenever you add a negative phrase, because you're actually blocking a lot of things at once, which is good if you're adding something that you could never be profitable for.
So you got to have
So
that
that's
intent.
where,
The intent there. That makes sense.
right. A really obvious example from that running shoes is like, for some crazy reason, it's an auto campaign. Maybe you got an impression for high heel shoe. You see the word high heel there, and you never want to show up for something like that. So you would just throw in high heel as a negative phrase, and then you'd block every search with high heel in it. So that's a really overt example of where you would use a phrase. So to recap, if there's something that you would never want to appear for, regardless, then that's where you would use a negative phrase, because you're blocking that and associated
Any
searches with
iteration.
it. Whereas if you want to block just that one thing, you would use a negative exact.
I think that's a great framework. All right. So next question: when would I want a high ACOS?
Mm-hmm. Probably more often than one would think. Um, so the way we talked about the paid algorithm and the organic algorithm. One thing that Amazon likes to look at is how much you are converting, period. And if you are getting more orders per day, then that's generally a good thing, and that Amazon will want to serve you more. So the way that this works here, it's a little nuanced, but if you could pick and choose between 10 orders at a 10% ACOS or 100 orders at a 50% ACOS, most of the time it would make sense for you to want to do 100 orders at a 50% ACOS. And the question would be, well, hey, but I'm way more profitable at 10% ACOS. Why wouldn't I want to be at 10% ACOS? Why would I ever want to be at 50% ACOS at 100 orders? And the answer would be
Is it
to,
organic?
Yeah, the answer would be to sort of pump up your organic. Now, how does that bump up organic? In sort of direct and indirect ways. Most of it is all indirect, meaning I like to think of it this way. Every order you get, you have a star rating per order, uh, or orders per star rating. So, how many orders do you need to get a star rating, to get an extra rating? And if you think about that, that's the first ratio. So, the more orders you get, the more star ratings you'll get. Cool. Then the next ratio, what is your conversion rate per star rating? Meaning, if your conversion rate is, if your star rating is really high, how many extra orders do you get than if it was low? So there's a monetary value to just getting orders because it'll translate into a better star rating and then translate into more sales.
The hardest thing I've
Yeah.
ever had to explain to new sellers is you need sales to get sales.
Yes.
And I
Positive feedback loop.
and it's like I start with that in the first 15 minutes of an engagement
Hmm.
because it's so critical to explain that. And then you can go into honeymoon theory and whatever else, whether it works or not, still who knows. And that explanation. But what you're explaining is you need orders to get orders, and it makes perfect sense. I kind of use this ratio. I'm curious what your ratio will be on this. For every one PPC order you get 3 organic over time. I've never proven that, but that's kind
Right.
of my made up ratio. What are your thoughts?
It's pretty interesting. It probably varies a lot, industry to industry. I think everything does. Um, in terms of a ratio, in terms of a lift, in terms of a boost, I don't know enough quantitatively to measure that. I'd love to crunch the numbers on our end to try to be able to do that. I hope to do a lot more of that in 2021. What I would love to see is sort of ratios, exactly what you just described. Meaning, I think you can break it down by a product level and a keyword level. The product level would be much easier because you can sort of say, when my ACOS for this entire product, so everywhere where it appeared in my account, in my advertising account, my ACOS, when it was at 30%, I got 500 organic orders. Now, all of a sudden, my ACOS for that product is now higher. Do I have more organic sales? Do I have more organic orders? And you'd want to really be specific about how you look at that so you eliminate false positives. So you'd want to know like clicks per order, conversion rate, all these different things. But like that's sort of how I would think about it. How many orders did you get when you were at a 30% ACOS organically? And how many organic orders do you get when you're at 50% ACOS? Is it worth it? Is there a point where it's diminishing returns? Meaning you're at 100% ACOS, it didn't go up 3x from when you were at 30. Is it worth it? Maybe not. Maybe. So you'd be able to actually track that. So I'd love to do a lot of that in 2021.
Those are hard numbers to crunch, I
I
imagine.
think it's impossible to
Yeah.
do without some kind of number crunching machine.
But if there's anybody that can do it, I think it's you. So
Come on, Stephen.
when you pull it off, let me know. I'll bring you back on just to
Yeah,
talk about the data.
that'd be cool.
So,
That'd
so
be
now
really
that we're
cool.
talking data, you guys have done a ton of use cases,
Hmm.
case studies, you name it. Um, which which one was the most helpful to your cause, and which was the most surprising?
Um, could you ask that question one more time?
So,
I'm
so
sorry.
you guys have done a lot of data crunching.
Right.
So through that data crunching, you've probably learned a ton of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So maybe the easier question is, what was the most surprising result of one of those data crunching?
Hmm. I I think my favorite. I'll start with my favorite metric. Uh, is that the more you spend, the lower the ACOS is of the account. Uh, and I'll repeat that.
Yeah, please do, because I'm like trying to translate that.
If you were to line up 10 advertisers, advertiser one is spending $100, two is 1,000, three is 10,000, so on and so forth in multiples of 10, whatever. Or just line people up in terms of how much they're spending and what their current account ACOS is. It would almost be correlated. The larger somebody's spending, the lower their ACOS is. And this is actually more common than you think. Uh, and I could speculate as to why
So
that
not
is.
no
Yeah.
diminishing returns is what I'm hearing.
there are points where that happens. So in fact, I would say very much diminishing returns, meaning if somebody cannot spend, like let's say somebody's spending $3,000 a month at 30%, it might not be possible for them to spend $10,000 a month at a 20%. It might just not be possible.
Is it also not possible for them to spend 10,000 at 100% ACOS? Like they just literally
that might be possible. That
Okay.
might be possible. Yeah. So I think it's interesting. I think product market fit matters a lot, and I think people with a bigger market generally can spend more to a hungrier market. So this is where product market fit is so super powerful. Like if you asked me to what would be easier to accomplish, to bring down the ACOS 5 points on an account that's spending $100,000 a month, or to bring down the ACOS 5 points on an account that's spending $1,000 a month. I mean, they're both probably pretty easy for me, but no. By having a larger account, you generally have more data to crunch.
Yeah, it makes your job easier the more data you've got. That makes sense.
You have more data to crunch. You have more things to optimize. One of the hardest situations to optimize is when I talk to people with very small budgets. Maybe they're getting 10 orders a week. It's very difficult to make a change, wait for the next 10 orders, or the next meaningful set of data. It's very difficult to measure. There's so much random variance. So, one thing I think is important for newer advertisers to understand, for the accounts that spend $100,000 a month, that's so many orders per day. So you can make a change and know relatively quickly if that change was good or bad, and you can make another change and continue to optimize it. You have so much more data. But the thing that I want to point out here is that in those large accounts, it's not outside of the ordinary to go from a 20% ACOS one day to 25 the next to 15 the next. It sort of oscillates around. So there's a sort of random variance. People don't search things in uniform patterns. If there's 30 searches a month, they're probably not going to be one per day. Especially when there's
explaining the hills and valleys to new clients, also a big pain point, because
very difficult.
They can't comprehend it. People love patterns. They want to see stability, right? But
Yes.
Sunday and Mondays, most categories, those are your best 2 days of the week, at least from what we've seen. Friday and Saturday, weakest 2 days of the week, and then the rest of the day somewhere in between. And so the patterns you're talking about probably day a week, but also probably more so than that, right? What other events could cause that?
I mean, honestly, just a ton of random variance, seemingly random to us, in the sense of if you take something that gets searched 30,000 times a month, there's no way that's going to land 1,000 searches a day perfectly uniform. So, some days we'll have 1,300 searches, maybe another day has 800 searches. So there's so much random variance that in the smaller account, looking at it on a time scale is incredibly dangerous, because it is well within the realm of possibility. You go from 10 orders one day to 2 orders the next, to 15 the next, to 20 the next, back to 7 without making a single change. So I think it's incredibly difficult to optimize those accounts. And, it's just not the way that our brains work. We think in terms of days, when perhaps for a lower volume account, the answer is to think in terms of batches of 30 orders. So, how did I do in this current 30 orders, whether that took 2 days or 2 weeks to get. It can be very challenging to optimize a small campaign like that.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So lo and behold, if you're just getting started as a new seller, the answer is go spend some test money, right? And if you're a seller that's been around the block, it's probably time to engage an expert consult or a tool to get more sophisticated. All right, so you got me thinking about one of my favorite books. And speaking of animals, it's also an animal. It's called The Black Swan. And cool. And I was curious. So this book, for those that don't know, it's the impact of the highly improbable with, and the guy, Nassim Nicholas Taleb, if I said that correctly, I think he's from Israel. He indicts the bell curve. So first of all, have you heard of that book? Have you read it?
Yes.
I'm not surprised by that answer, by the way, but it's just purely based on the way you're speaking. And so you've looked at a lot of data, and I have to ask, but by the way, what do you think of that book? Let's start there.
2 thumbs up. Go and read it.
Sounds good. So, all right. So I was looking at your LinkedIn. You've got a BS in biological sciences, which might be why you went Badger. I don't know. And a BA in science education, not necessarily an economics degree, but here you are speaking very elegantly with speaking like a quant that you would see off of Moneyball with Brad Pitt, right? So how did that happen exactly? Like what influenced you to become like this quantify, let's just go with the Brad Pitt quant.
Yes, I think I will take you back to my preteen days. I played a lot of StarCraft. I love
StarCraft. Was that
Yes.
South Korea and StarCraft? That goes together.
Yes.
Were you on like some StarCraft pro team? Is that what
I wish.
Okay. What brought you to South Korea then?
I'll take you there real quick.
All right, we got time for the story. Go ahead.
So I grew up playing real-time strategy games. I think I have a natural affinity to sort of like fast-paced chess, where you make a change, you watch what happens, you try to see all the points and how they're corresponding to it. Like one of my favorite things to do is to look at what our bid algorithm is doing and see what we can do to make it better. So I'm super excited.
You micro by the nanosecond. Anybody that plays StarCraft can micro like what if you're not making 100 clicks a minute, you're losing the game, right? Like
that's
is that the saying? So you mentioned chess. Do you play chess?
I'm not very good at chess.
Okay.
I haven't spent too much
time.
All
right, so I'll play you a chess match sometime. Winner takes the other company over. All right.
Nice.
You'll probably make the same bet with StarCraft, and I'll quickly back out, even though I used to play back in the day. But I don't think my Zerg Rush is going to do the trick these days.
Oh man, you got it.
All right. So preteens.
Yeah.
Hopefully you go through pass through the story of puberty a little quick first.
Yes.
But go ahead.
Yeah. I just grew up playing like all of these like number-based number crunching. I thought it was fascinating, where like one unit has a certain attack damage, but it also has an attack speed, and this other one might have more damage but a lower attack speed. And like you have to think about what units can attack each other really effectively and how to counter your opponent.
There's some Dungeons and Dragons stats right there for you.
Yeah, so I think there's so many parallels there to PPC that scratches the same itch. So yes, I did go to college for biological sciences and science education, because I think it was a fun way to approach the science component. I love teaching others. I love talking about things and trying to make them easy and watch people's gears turn in their head as they understand something. It's really personally fulfilling with me. One time I was traveling through Thailand and I met someone after 45 minutes of knowing me. They're like, I think I know your archetype. It's the teacher. And I was like, damn, how'd you know? They did anyway, so that was really interesting. But yeah, so I taught high school biology in America, and then I taught, I had an opportunity to teach in South Korea as well, and I took it, and that's where I started my company, and the rest is history.
Dude, that's awesome. So, we just did a podcast where we talked to a guy. He went from Hollywood to become an Amazon seller. And
Sweet.
We could also go that same angle from teacher to teach, I guess still teacher technically.
Yeah.
From teacher to quant. I'm going to go with that instead.
Sure.
All right. So clearly you love teaching, and you've got that ingrained into your soul by no stretch of the imagination. So as we kind of wrap the pod up here, and we went long today because I love your story. I'm just fascinated and obviously anticipated doing this pod with you for many, many weeks. But as you see Amazon making all these changes, it's really hard to keep up with. And we kind of touched on that briefly earlier in the podcast. But if you had to put on your prediction cap, and one of my podcasts last week, I asked for people's feedback in my comments. It's like, what do you want to see more of? This was one of the top things people ask for. They want to see contextual predictions and how to handle those.
Cool.
So if we're going into next year, what do you think is going to change and what should I do about it? And teachers aren't necessarily prophets. I get it.
Yeah. So I think obvious things that will probably continue to happen. More ad placements, more competitiveness, which generally means more cost per click, a higher cost per click going up. Just by the very nature of what the specialized auction is. So as CPCs go up, the way to counter against that is to make your Amazon listing the best listing for that keyword. Because if you have a better conversion rate than your competition and you bid less, you still have the opportunity to appear above them if you convert better than your competition. So I think that will continue to be true because there is a cap at which you can pay per sale. So many people sell products under $50 on Amazon. So there's no way that cost per clicks could go up to $25. On Google Ads, if you're selling like something like life insurance or health insurance, those clicks are over $50. And the reason those clicks can be over $50 is because they've just been driven up because the average customer value over there is like tens of thousands of dollars.
So bidding on lifetime value, but not necessarily the case on Amazon with a consumer good.
Right. So we really want to continue to prioritize product market fit. I think that will always be true. So CPCs go up. I also think complexity will go up because that's one way that platforms have generally combated rising CPCs is to offer more products. So you get more opportunity to get sales at your target ACOS. So we will need to continue to prioritize. And we're seeing this a little bit at the tail end of 2020. But in 2021, it will become more and more important to tap into all of the ad products and especially sponsored display. So definitely be using a lot more sponsored display. And finally, those additional ad products, sponsored brand, sponsored display, necessitate brand registry. So that will continue to be prioritized. Amazon explicitly says how important it is for brands to be on Amazon and to build a brand on Amazon. So I think we will continue to see the push of brand related ads. I think that is all of those things. I think we have good.
I think those are safe predictions. I'll hang my hat with you on those. And if you don't have a brand on Amazon today, you are actually behind, in my opinion.
Yep.
Go buy that trademark. We do offer trademarks at My Amazon Guide to get you filed for that if you need. Check us out at myamazonguide.com. I want to go briefly back to, you mentioned be the most relevant for a specific keyword. Does that mean keyword stuff in the title and the bullet points, or what does that mean?
It means a lot of things. And I think if I could re-say that, I would say the best result for that particular search. And that can mean a variety of things. In Amazon's eyes, that generally means the highest conversion rate. So even without talking about some kind of SEO penalty from keyword stuffing, I think the bigger argument there is that would be conversion rate damage by just repeating the same word over and over again. So I think we'll want to continue to think of product pages as a 24/7 salesperson for that product so that it converts really well. And then Amazon likes that, so they want to serve it more frequently. And that's how you really drive that home.
Well, cool. Michael, thank you so much for coming on our podcast. I'll give you the last thought here in a moment, but I am going to sell you up a tiny bit here. So AdBadger is the only Amazon PPC software tool you'll ever need to optimize your campaigns. Get up to date with Amazon ads training as well with their community. Great software tool run by great people. Obviously, pretty strong endorsement from me on our podcast today. I'll give you the last word, Michael. Anything else you'd like to add for our pod today? for posterity's
Stephen,
sake or otherwise.
Yeah, thanks so much for saying that, all those things. It's been great to be on the show. You are a talented and skilled interviewer. I had a blast.
Thank you.
Really great time.
Well, hopefully you'll invite us onto your pod someday. Look forward to that invite. Nudge, nudge. Thank you guys for watching our podcast. We really appreciate it. Obviously, there's a lot of things. If you're coming from the Ad Badger audience, there's a lot of services that are complementary but not competitive to the Ad Badger. So if you need some other services outside of advertising, check us out at myamazonguy.com. Everything from SEO work to design and cataloging and reinstatements. My name is Stephen Pope. I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy, and that is the My Amazon Guy podcast. This was the My Amazon Guy podcast with Stephen Pope. Each episode helps you grow your sales on Amazon through ideas on traffic and conversion rate improvements. Hit that subscribe button right now to tune in each week. And if you need more help, go to myamazonguy.com.
Do you have any plans for your Thanksgiving holiday?
The wife made a turkey. We're going to use a dry rub this year because I hear dry rubs are where it's at.
Is that the same as a dry, like a brine?
So a brine, as I understand it, it's when you do a wet rub, but I could be wrong on that delineation. I'm not the food scientist. That was my Sunday podcast. So if you want to, if you're into that and you want to know more, the Joe Shaw podcast, that was a good one. He owns Flying Swine.
Cool. Yes, we do it. I grew up with really bad turkey. It was always dried out. I always thought turkey was the chore of Thanksgiving. However, since then, I've discovered I do think it's a dry brine, and we brined it, and it tastes so good. But I don't know exactly what the terminology is called, if that's any different than what you just described.
Maybe it's one and the same. Dry rub is where it's at. Those what the source, what the intel says, and so that's what we're doing this year. And
right on.
And I'm excited about it. So we'll see what happens. I also like chunky mashed potatoes. Super important.
Yes, mashed potatoes, biscuits. Oh, so many good things. My favorite flavor is Thanksgiving.
That's a good flavor.
Yes.
Well, maybe I'll throw this at the end of our podcast. That was a good conversation.